Good. We are also good. Arjun, Pankhuri, hi.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Hi, hello everyone.
Arjun.
Pankhuri is still in Europe. Good place.
Yeah.
Yes, enjoying. Chalo, theek hai. We'll get started. We started the recording. We are on time. So this is the topic for today: the highly sensitive person, how to survive and thrive when the world overwhelms you. And on the left, you see this picture. I'll talk a lot about this picture and the book as well. Before that, let's start with our intention. So sit comfortably. If you are on a chair, let your feet be comfortably on the ground, your back supported. You gently bring your awareness to your breath. You close your eyes. Just notice your breath for a couple of rounds. Notice the air going in. You can repeat after me. May we be Saath together. May we be Jigyasu, curious. May we be Virya, energetic. May our learning be Tejasvi, bright. Shanti, Sukoon, peace. Good evening. We have some more people. Hi, Santu, Sudeep, Sonika, Priyanka. Welcome. Welcome to the session on the highly sensitive person. How to survive and thrive when the world overwhelms you. So again, before we get into the session, what to expect? Firstly, this is not, at least based on self-experiential learning as an HSP. So I'm not a highly sensitive person. And we'll see what that means. And HSP is an acronym we'll keep using. So at least in my understanding, in whatever now, there are some questionnaires which I'll talk about. Some questions I do not fall in this category. And I think I agree with that assessment. So this is not coming from my own self-experiential experience or learning as a person, but I think there has been some reading, some understanding of neuroscience, my work as a coach, working with people, supporting them, and also living with people who have been HSP individuals. So it's second hand or first hand living with people, working with them, supporting with them, and sort of, I think that motivated me or got me to see that this is something which is there, it exists, and it's good to give it a name. Sometimes just knowing that being or this whole concept of a highly sensitive person, it exists, it is there, and it's good to know. And I think sometimes that shifts some perspective, both for me, as I said, as a person living with somebody, working with somebody who is an HSP. So how I work, that shifted for me, even understanding this, appreciating this. And I have seen for somebody who is an HSP, how knowing this sort of changed their own perception, their own perspective, their own acceptance about themselves. on understanding sort of what it is. So even that's what I'll try and also look at today. So today I'm not looking at giving any specific advice or anything specific for a person, but more a way to look at this, what is high sensitivity and its implications. And I think maybe focus just on what it is, what's its origin, how it is thought about, how can one think about it, both. And we'll see very quick, very high level. I'll share a very short, a few questions that Elaine shares herself, but to see if you want to explore this further for yourself, or if you notice this about somebody around you as well, and what that means for that person, right? So what to see there. Yeah, so that's the sort of intention. By the end of it, if you have some, let's say, appreciation for what this term means, what is the origin of this term, what is a highly sensitive person? Can you see that for yourself or for people around you who are there? What are the implications? Then I think the job is done, because this was almost it was, I think, and beyond, more than a PhD thesis for somebody who sort of elaborated it, then ended up writing one book, then a couple of other books around this topic. So it's a very detailed topic in some ways. So the idea is just to introduce and see if anybody connects with it in any way, as I said, for yourself or anybody around you. Yeah. Sounds okay? We have more people joining in. So yeah, I welcome Sita, Sheetal, Garima, Yamini, Evelyn. Good to have you. Good. So yeah, so that's what we'll try and cover today and understand what that is. And I'll do it. This is sort of the source. And the question, as we keep going through it, high sensitivity, a burden or a superpower. So you will see, but as I'm not using the word superpower also lightly, it can be that, but it's basically that. And this person, Elaine Aaron, she did her PhD quite late in her life. She herself is a highly sensitive person. She did her PhD, which was research around it to understand what this is. In fact, she's the one, I think, that articulated this term, defined this as well in just building this understanding. And this book that I have put out, this is the cover of the book. This is what uh, I ended up reading after sort of understanding this very briefly, read it to understand the perspective uh, of a highly sensitive person and what that means. So a lot of what I'll talk about partly will be from this, partly, as I said, from my experience. Yeah. And this is something that is there for anybody later on, and happy to take more questions. Okay. So what we'll look at, we'll just first understand what is sensitivity. This word itself can be loaded. In fact, Elaine in her book describes that when she discovered whatever this is, and she was considering what to call it, the highly sensitive person. So she was like, this phrase itself can get misunderstood, can be judged. But she stayed with that because it sort of still kept that essence. So we'll try and understand what sensitivity is, and then define in that context what the highly sensitive person is, and some implications for the HSP and otherwise. What does it mean in day-to-day life? And as always, feel free to ask questions. Stop me as I'm going through it if there are clarifications and experiences most important to share. If you're relating with anything for yourself, for somebody around you, making it rich with examples will always be good. Okay, so let's start with basic, what is sensitivity? And I start with this question. What is the difference between 1.3 megapixel camera and a 100 megapixel camera? Right? We are very aware of this now. I think it's gotten a little lesser now. I remember At one point, this was the USP of phones. It still is sometimes. Now it's become whether one camera or four cameras, but still, let's use this term to see. What do you think is the difference? Anybody unmute and say. And good to see. Hi, Shivani, Andy, Kalpesh, also joining. So good. Anybody, go ahead. What is the difference between a 1.3 and a 100 megapixel camera?
Think it is like
Kalpesh?
resolution. Better resolution.
Better
More,
resolution. Okay. What does that mean practically? What does it result in resolution?
Oh, clarity maybe in
Clarity.
the pictures.
Yeah. Clearer image. Okay.
More
Anything?
sensors.
Huh?
More sensors.
More sensors. Yeah. What does that allow us to do, for example? One is clarity. Anything else? I think somebody told me, so I have put, it's largely that we can zoom in, right? So we can keep zooming and the picture won't pixelate, right? We keep still seeing that clarity as we go, right? So this, in very short, this is being more sensitive. This is sensitivity. This is the, in some ways, accuracy. Like how sensitive a camera is, one can say, is because it can capture more clarity, more detail, more accuracy, right? Why we say more accuracy? Because, for example, if there is an edge in an image, if we have a higher pixel camera, that edge will be more clear, right? And even more zooming, we can print it on a billboard instead of an A4 image, A4 paper, and it will still look very clear. Yeah. So in short, that's sensitivity. But what are some of the implications of this? So one is, let's say, more sensors, but again, from another sense, what happens because this, so for example, is the image size, the file size the same in both? Is there a difference in file size? Have you noticed it?
It is more.
It is more, yeah, more sensitive.
Yeah, it means there is a lot more information and to process, and you are dealing with a lot more high resolution image, right?
Yeah.
So
There's
lot more details to process, and yeah.
There's more information. It requires more processing. Like you said, there's more to process and more to store. More to store, more memory, right? So that's the implication. That's sort of the trade-off between accuracy and processing and memory, right? So those are the implications of higher sensitivity. Yeah. So this is in the context of a camera where what are we trying to do? We are capturing light essentially, right? We are capturing light and trying to create an image. So the reason I use this example is this is what we do, right? What we do. What is the system in us, our nervous system? Now, sort of what's our mechanism of sensing? How do we sense something? Because this is about sensing, sensitivity, right? So it is about sensing. So what is our mechanism of action? So we have these what are known as exteroceptors, external receptors or sensors. So they are sight, which is in our eyes, the rods and cones. There is sound, which is in our ears. There is touch across our skin. There is smell. There is taste. We sense temperature. We can sense pain. Pain is internal, but it can also be external. If there is a cut, etc., there is external, but it's largely any break in tissue. So these are things we are sensing. We are able to capture this information, right? With me till here? This is what we are doing. Like just like this camera has a plate, right? We used to have this film earlier. Now it's a plate with pixels. Here in our eye, there is retina where there are some cells effectively like pixels. Same with our ears. There is a whole band of cells. In our nose, there are certain cells, right? So this is exteroceptors. Similarly, we have some what are known as proprioceptors. These are sensors which track our position and the force, right? So an example, for example, if I ask you to close your eyes and touch your left index finger to your tip of your nose, with your eyes closed, you are able to do it, right? Everyone, you can try. If you do, you can do, right? So you know exactly where your hand is. You know exactly where your nose is. You don't need your eyes actually to do that. So something else is telling you. There is an information sensor which is telling where every body part of yours is physically there and how much force it is applying. If I ask you push hard, you can push hard, you can push less. You can adjust the force that is applied. So those are known as proprioceptors. This is neuroscience term. And then there are interoceptors. These are internal sensors which tell us about pain, which tell us about chemicals, which tell us about temperatures inside the body. So for example, sometimes you do feel, right? You feel like there is some acid in your stomach, right? Sometimes you feel that there's a burning sensation somewhere, for example, right? So those are some internal which are telling chemicals. It detects chemicals. In fact, I don't know how many of you know why we breathe or what is the impulse to breathe. Why do we breathe? Because we need more oxygen, right? We are very tired. Is that why we breathe? Anybody? So the sensor which starts our motion of breath, like the breathing movement, is a sensor which detects carbon dioxide levels in our blood. So when we have high level of carbon dioxide in our blood, then our breathing starts because we have to take out the carbon dioxide. It's not to get oxygen actually. So we breathe to remove the toxin to carbon dioxide, and there is a sensor which detects the level of carbon dioxide in our blood. So that's why these chemical sensors are there, which are informing our system that, okay, they're just capturing this information all around. And I think to put it very loosely, at least 1 billion plus or of that order of magnitude sensors are there. So megapixel, so we are already way more than 1000 megapixel at that level, but I think it's even way more than that. I'm just giving a very conservative estimate. And these sensors are all coming together. They come together. So information from all these sensors is simultaneously coming to one place, and that collectively can be called as interoception or overall assessment of the state. What is our state like? The picture at any given moment. So picture I'm using loosely. Picture, the state of our body system. I'm going very quickly, briefly in some ways through this. This is also what our entire workshop that's coming on neuroscience and I, which is starting next Sunday, is all about. We'll go a lot more deeper, but very broadly, just think of it like one camera. Instead of that just capturing light, it's all these different kinds of information that's coming together. And a computing or processing is happening here to create this assessment of the state, a collective assessment of the state, right? And this is the felt sense. We call it I feel this. When we say I feel this, it is this collective, all of these 1 billion plus things ka input that somehow our system has processed. Some might say this is the largest already quantum computer that exists and more, because the processing is very intricate across in terms of how these sensors are interconnected. And this creates this. So there is processing, there is computation, there is memory that is required as well. So there is an equivalent of a RAM. RAM, if people know, is just temporary memory that's there in our laptops, which goes away when we switch off the laptop. And then there is hard disk kind of space. So both kinds of memories exist in our system. So this is happening. This is constantly happening, right? So this is just basic like fact, science, neuroscience, if you may, that is there in our nervous system. This information is constantly happening. So even, for example, right now, as you are seeing this, right? So you are seeing part of the slide. Some of you may have that window open where you're seeing 5 other faces, videos on, right? That tab may be there. So that is there. You're listening to what I am saying. There is some information coming from your peripheral vision. There will be some temperature. Bombay, it's very hot. Wherever you are, based on if you're in an AC, not AC, your body is also assessing that, the temperature everywhere. There might be other sounds. I can hear kids playing down, for example. So all this is coming in. at the same time. You're sitting on the chair, your feet is on the ground, your back is touching, all that touch sensation is coming. Somebody might be hungry, it's dinner time. So they may want to have some food, which is perfectly okay. Yeah, so all this is happening at the same time. Yeah. Now, in this context, right? In this context, who is this sensitive person? But this is sensitivity. I'll just define that and then I'll open it up for more questions because that's where this is relevant. It's not the science. So who is the sensitive person, right? So all this is happening. So just like we saw, what is sensitivity is reception or sensing, which is more accurate, right? So essentially a highly sensitive person is one who can sense more, all of this or any of this. And what does sense more mean? It can be because they have more pixels or more accurate sensors or just fact more sensors. So for example, and this I see a lot, at least I have faced this now, people may, and this happens with sound. You may have noticed that somebody is listening and they say, oh, ये सुर में नहीं गा रहा है. यार ये कुछ सुर में चल नहीं रहा है. Something is missing on sound. I have no clue. I have never been able to figure that out. I still don't understand what sur is because my ear can't just differentiate it. I just can't. And then it results in when I try to say it, I think I'm saying it exactly as what I'm listening. But obviously the people who are listening to me say you are way off. There is no, it's not in key. It's because my sensing itself is not as high. Same you would have seen with people who are able to sometimes just notice a lot of detail, maybe differentiate colors yellow from rust to some golden yellow to light yellow, just different sensitivity, more accuracy. They are able to just figure each of these out with more accuracy. Or quote unquote, the master chefs who are able to eat something, or the wine tasters who are able to find different notes in whatever wine they are tasting because their taste cells are able to sense more. It's high, more pixels, more megapixels. Just think of more sensitivity in the way they are able to differentiate. And biologically, it can happen in multiple ways. As I said, more sensors, more accurate sensors. It can be in the size of action potential, multiple things that could result in this. But it happens. It is just there. So good. Sita is asking this, children with autism, highly sensitive or any neurological issues. So, and exactly that's the question. That's exactly the question. Is this a neurological issue? Or this is just how it is. It is just how it is.
I think it is a system design.
It is a system.
In which the resolution is more and
yes.
Yeah.
Resolution.
And there will be some trade-off around it.
There will be some trade-off. We will come to that trade-off as well, right? But it will be. And this happens due to biological variations. Simple as that. There is just biology. Biology is statistical. Nothing. So even if you look at two plants, it may seem similar, but if you go to a biologist, they will find difference. That's why our fingerprints are unique, as simple as that. 8 billion people and fingerprints are unique. Because every individual, the way they develop, there is some variation there. Each one of us here and all the 8 billion people were just a single cell. We started as a single cell, each one of us. Right? The two cells from mother, father, and we are one cell. And that cell then divides till it becomes this 100 trillion cell composite. Right? With hands of different size, face, everything starts varying. And part of it is genetics, part of it is in the gene, but a lot of that development happens because there is this variance. There is this natural variance in biological processes, just like a lot of biology is chemistry. If you do a reaction, I don't know how many of you have done in chemistry lab or remember that. How is the yield? Is the yield always the same when you react to chemicals? We like writing C plus O2 is CO2. But you put C and O2 together, will does 100% always convert? No, right? That reaction has different rates, different mixtures. So this variance is very much natural. There is a natural variance. And yes, Neha, what you are also saying, there is a learning ability also. So part of it is learning, which is in the connections, but part of it is in the physiology, in how the cell membrane is of the neurons. That will determine some of these factors. How many neurons get packed there? That will also allow that ability. That's why with training, some people learn, some with training also can't learn. So there is that combination of training as well as what is there in the biological part. Both factors are there. This is like nature and nurture. Both are there. And it's not, the reason I'm hesitant to use the word design, because design tends to seem, we are getting so used to with machines that there is standardization. But in biology, there is variance. These are normal distributions. So even if you think of it as normal distribution curve, there will be the 10 and 20%. And that sort of Elaine's estimate of people with this high sensitivity is in that 10 to 20% zone, where their just system is more sensitive, more accurate, more pixels in the way they develop or they came to be. I'll take a pause here. I saw there was a hand, Kalpesh. He's brought it down, but if there's something, yeah, go ahead, Kalpesh.
So, I have a question. So when you say more sensitive, so there can be two kind of sensitivities. One is, say, if I'm listening to music, I go into depth, I understand every note of it. That is highly sensitive, probably. Other kind of, I'm listening to music, but I hear all the surrounding voices, right? So I can't ignore them, someone. That is also highly sensitive because I gather more information there also.
Yes,
So
both are. So if you take a picture, yeah, a high sensitive camera will be able to capture everything, whatever is outside also, right? Like you're saying, yeah. That noise is part of it. That's part of, quote unquote, the challenge of the high sensitive people. And that requires that processing to tune out that noise. So even now, for example, as I said, if I tune in, I'm hearing the kids playing down. But as I'm in this conversation, my processor is tuning that out. It is choosing to let go of that signal. But for a highly sensitive person, yes, more of that signal comes in. So processing required is more to tune it out. Yeah, exactly. That also happens. And if they are able to tune into what they want to, they are able to get more accuracy also. So both happen. Both happen. Exactly. And the other thing, there are more questions. Good, please do ask. Other thing I want to highlight is this variance. Again, this variance is something that evolution, that nature has allowed in some ways to continue, or it has survived this natural selection process, which seems to indicate there is benefits. There are benefits to it as a collective. There are benefits to it. And there is some study around it on how, and some people, and we'll see how if anybody is relating with it, but we'll also see how this results in sometimes the value they add to the collective, to the group particularly in humans, having, say, that 15-20% population, which is highly sensitive. What does that mean? As a strength, it means they are able to sense danger sooner. They are able to pick up cues which others are not. Right? That's what more accuracy does. You are here, you hear that small sound, which means a predator is coming, which others may not. And so you, in that process, then help everyone survive because you can inform the collective.
does it also mean that, say, most of the poets, the artists, musicians, they are highly sensitive?
They could be, or they could be highly trained. So I think there some art skill can be built. But this does give them a possible, I would say, possibly an advantage, definitely. I don't think it's not. But if they don't build it as a skill, you don't use the sensor, it won't be used. And with a normal sensor also, you may be able to build high skill in that. Both are possible. I think we don't know it. So it's about that some variation is there. It doesn't guarantee, assure anything, nor does it prevent a lot. But yeah, it could mean something even better. So the definition of the highly sensitive person I just wanted to highlight is essentially in this ability, in this almost physiological presence of high sensitivity, higher accuracy, higher ability to capture more information in their sensing system, in their neurological sensing system, which includes all the three components that you see, all the three components of external sensing, internal, the body position sensing, and the interoceptors, which is chemical and temperature sensing internal. Yes, Yamini.
So biologically, are you saying they have more neurons?
So one way of higher sensing is more neurons. The other could be that the neurons are able to sense more accurately as well, with which there are functions like their RMP, resting membrane potential, their action potential, the time period of all that might be different as well. So it could be through the structure or the composition of the neuron may also affect. So it could be more neurons or it could be
The same
more
neuron working better?
better. Same neuron being more accurate can do with high fidelity. Basically, in our nervous system, and this is again what we'll look at a little bit in the neuroscience and it is frequency modulated. So your ability to the range, as you in frequency modulation, how much range of frequency you can modulate, that will improve your accuracy, right? The more signal, more information you can capture. So that can
So
be.
it's more at the capturing part, not at the inhibiting, because there are inhibiting neurons also, right? That like inhibit, like the example you were saying that you can hear the kids downstairs, right? But
So inhibiting neurons
like, isn't your
Hmm.
mind focusing on something, and so like that's getting inhibited?
Correct. This is a lot more at the sensing level, the sensory neurons. The inhibiting are more
Okay.
interconnecting neurons, interneurons.
Okay.
So is it also possible that if someone is more sensitive towards something, and probably it may inhibit the other senses, right? Say, generally we have seen that people who are say blind or has say some problem with the eyes can hear much better than the other people. So the neurons are diverted towards some other function.
Yes.
Other senses.
That also happens, yes. Yeah, neurons can be used for different purposes as well. But usually again, sensing neurons, interconnecting neurons are used, sensing are a little bit more specialized in the way they operate. Their whole mechanism is different. Like rods and cones are the sensing neurons in the retina for light. Ear is a very different function than the nose, smelling, so we still haven't fully understood, but very different structure of neurons. So that interchange may not happen, but the neurons in the brain that are there, that actually get redistributed, reallocated. Okay, good. So this is about the neural structure, how it is originating there. I think the further implication now, what does this mean? For example, so some of the few questions behaviorally, right? How can we assess? This is very simple 4 questions that she asks at the end of the book, which I'm using in the book, and online you can find a much more, I think, a 20-25 question survey or like a self-administered questionnaire, which can tell you whether you are an HSP or not, and it sort of scores you on that. And I think you can just Google HSP questionnaire, you will get it. Otherwise, I'll share a link also. But these are just some questions, and as you see, reflect on whether it sort of fits for you, fits for you or not. So for example, do you have a keen imagination and vivid dreams? Vivid dreams, and oftentimes the dreams that you remember next day, right? So that's one sign of somebody who might be a highly sensitive person in this way, in terms of sensing. Is time alone each day as essential to you as food and water? So does, for example, too many people, too much social interaction tire you out in some ways, exhaust you? Do you want to just be with yourself at least? Very essential for you. As food and water, like that's the extreme she's going to. Then are you too shy or too sensitive according to others? Right? This often happens, particularly in childhood, when kids who are, and they don't know yet, because this is again physics, there's no training, this is just about physiology. And people might say, oh, I don't know, it's too much, or they can't eat something, or they're something, and they get branded as too sensitive. बहुत नखरा है, all that branding, quote unquote, starts happening. Too much labeling, judgment around it happens. So if that's something you have heard or known about yourself, or anybody again, and or do you feel overwhelmed by bright lights and noise? As simple as that. So just too much light is sometimes too much for you, or just sounds are disturbing for you. Are we hinting that introverts are likely HSP? No, not necessary. So introversion can be a coping mechanism for HSPs. Can be, but they need not be. So oftentimes what happens for HSPs is, one of the characteristics he does share is that they will not be that great socially in a group, but their social skills in smaller groups, one-on-ones can be as good. So that's why too shy is within quotes. You may get branded as an introvert, or you may get branded as a too shy person, but need not be. In a one-on-one setting, you may be. The other thing also that she's discovered, that a lot of HSPs, close to, she said 30% or so, are extroverts. They cope with this through extroversion as well. So it's again coping mechanism than any social skill or social preference priority. But it's more likely you are branded that way than actually you may be. So that is the thing to also watch out for, that you maybe seem like that. I'll take a pause here, see how it's landing. How are these questions landing? Do you see any connection, any resonance, any examples?
Dilip, hi, I joined a bit late, but I have just one quick question. How do you differentiate? So one is when I joined until now, what I got so far is people who are sort of more susceptible to sound, music, taste, lights, everything, right? All of that aspects, pain, temperature, what I'm seeing. All these are like physical sensations. So I'm more sensitive towards physical sensations. How do you differentiate people who are emotionally more sensitive? So, for example, I cry watching a Shah Rukh Khan movie, like I don't know why. Or I cry because I see someone crying. Or I just in general, feel overwhelmed in certain difficult situations, which some people may not find it more challenging, right? So are you going to touch upon that, or I'm just trying to get that?
Yeah. So actually, and that's, I think, the difference between emotional sensitivity, and that's the danger of labeling this. That's what Elaine also said on highly sensitive people, that this is not per se emotional sensitivity, but more which is there in the physiology. Emotional sensitivity comes more from past experiences, more interconnections in the nervous system around triggers, around things which seem similar and sort of invoke a certain response within us. but not necessarily just sensing. So this is sensitivity, as I said, just at the camera level, megapixel level sensitivity. So this is like having a 100 megapixel camera versus a 1 megapixel camera. That's the sensitivity that you're talking about. And that itself results in creating more sometimes emotional sensitivity because of this branding, some of these questions. So when we don't understand that the origin of this sensitivity, particularly in the initial days and in childhood, comes from almost from a physiological basis. And so the individual is helpless. There is no choice. Right? You are getting overwhelmed because just there is more information to process. Right? That's it. And that creates then a different kind of layers on it, on emotional layers, on getting branded as too shy, on lack of confidence sometimes because of that. So once you are told you are too shy, then you say, oh, I am too shy. And you don't try to get out of it. It just becomes, oh, this is who I am, becomes part of your identity, or I am too sensitive, or I am an introvert. Right?
Sandeep,
Hmm.
I wanted to say that while Elaine's work does talk a lot about the physiological aspects, there are also some of the emotional aspects that Neha is referring to. She talks of HSPs having like a very rich inner life, being affected by other people's moods, uh, being affected by changes in life, which is, I think, also going a little bit beyond the physiological. So I know it's not like the primary, but that does, I find that there is, like, from my own experience and also in her detailed questionnaire, that does come up as one of the factors.
Yes. So detailed inner life is definitely part of this, right? The vivid dreams. So inner life is inner sensing. That's how she also puts it. Change causes that, again, the nervous system to sense more again. Yeah. Is there anything more specific, Garima, you had in mind? Any example? No?
No, I think, see, there is a connection, but there is a physiological aspect, but there is also sensitivity to emotions and moods, because finally emotions and moods are also an energy and motion in the body, right? So if I'm affected by someone else's emotions,
Yes.
it is because we have those mirror neurons. So their emotions are affecting their physiological state, which then affects mine, which then makes me sensitive to theirs. So I do see that there is a correlation. It's not like completely separate from it.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Does that answer, Neha?
It does, and it leads to me another question where I was then now switching gears to you're talking about physical sensation, an ability to sense all these things more than others. Would you vaguely even connect this to people falling sick more, immunity aspects, to say that I can feel pain more, or I can, if there is a different kind of if somebody is sick around me and then there are more, I will just catch it faster. I'm just trying to connect all these to see whether they are going to get connected or not. And probably I just maybe take a pause.
Correct. No, I think this is important. So when maybe the examples that I have highlighted more are on this exteroceptors, which is the external 5 senses of sight, sound, touch, smell, because I think those are more, let's say, tangible. But this sensitivity extends to these sensors as well. So there is more pain sensation. There is more awareness of pain as well, like you're saying. There is more awareness of the chemical state. And our nervous, I don't know very directly about immune system. I don't know if Garima, you remember if Elaine talks about it, but our nervous system is very intricately linked with our immune system. They are, to me, one would say one system. They are not actually two systems. our immune system, our nervous system, and our endocrine system, these three systems, hormones, are in constant dialogue and conversation with each other. Constantly exchanging, the feedback loops are very strong, constantly communicating with each other. So there's a very high possibility. I don't know whether it's fully studied. This is again not very old in terms of research, and it's just picking up. Whether it's, I would see it's in the realm of possibility that they are connected. They result in that kind of connection as you are probably talking. But yeah, I think what even Garima is saying, and want to emphasize that these are equally important senses, not just the external, but pain, temperature, chemical, electromagnetic sensing, which we don't talk about because Western science doesn't talk about it much, or they're just beginning to even appreciate that possibly we do sense electromagnetically as well, which is other people's emotional states, like Garima was saying. So we do sense that as well. So it's very, again, in the realm of possibility that the highly sensitive person is able to sense, and we'll see that, read the room better also. That can be the positive side of it, or sense a lot again in that domain when present in a room full of people. And that input is also overwhelmed, can be also overwhelmed. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, yes. Okay. Shivani, you were saying something? Sorry, I don't know that you unmuted.
I wasn't sure I unmuted, but
Ah.
I just had a thought that there is some personality test where they call sensitive people as the yellow canary bird, which is taken to the mines. So basically, the coal miners would take them underground, and whenever the carbon monoxide is increasing, the birds would start chirping. But when I was hearing the story, I would just feel a lot of sadness for the yellow canary bird, because it doesn't mean that they are doomed to be the first ones to die when, some kind of poisoning is happening. Like, sure, they have a superpower of, being the alarm bell for others, but are they going to like die out in the process? And then I was also thinking that, like, it is for an HSP, if it's overstimulation is like a bit challenging, let's say,
Yes.
especially in like a large groups of people. And then, you have these, the Indian families where there are these big, large family get-togethers. And then what happens is that a person might just be feeling overstimulated, but there might be that perception that, oh, this person is arrogant and proud. And then again, they are basically not on the acceptable spectrum. So how do
Yes.
HSPs navigate these situations?
Yeah. No, that's thanks. So that's exactly the kind of implications. That's what this too shy, too, it can be arrogant, it can be asocial, all that branding can happen. And that's some of the key implications. So the implications of this, if you are identifying with any of this, it's very likely what happens is this: there is overwhelm, overheating due to overloading of computing, too much signal in a group. Any kind of signal, particularly in social setting, may be seen as being different, getting excluded, and then getting labeled that way, and that keeps reinforcing. The social exclusion can happen, and just noticing that is definitely something that is possible in any setting, that can happen. And the other side of it is this, right? They detect threats sooner, so they have better sensing, they're able to read the room better. So these are sort of the both sides of it, right? It's just like we said, in a camera, there is more sensing, means you need more memory and you need more computing power, which also has this flip side of getting easily overstimulated, overheated, and that could mean irritability. That could mean wanting to get away from that stimulus, and it could result in those kinds of behaviors, and being able to, resulting in all that. So the invitation, or the way, like you're saying, I think, is what she suggests. One, what this does, right? And this is something that she says for anybody who is And I did ask a couple of them. And I think if Garima is there, I'll ask her to maybe share her story. If there is, she can recall any. Is this question that for a highly sensitive person, there definitely have been instances. And she said when she interviewed over hundreds of people, she asked this question, how have you saved lives? And that's the direct question, like you're giving that example of canary bird. It's not like they will die first. That level of carbon monoxide, what is poisoning maybe for everyone, it's probably very similar. It's not like they will die first, but they will detect. And so their chances, one of personally surviving is the highest if they listen to it, if they have confidence in it, if they have confidence in their highly sensitive. And more importantly, they are very likely to save others. And in this context, actually, one of the examples she gives in the book is of this, I think her own or one of the people she interviewed, that they were sleeping and that person, the highly sensitive, was the first to wake up when there was a slight fire also. And able to wake everyone else up who was sleeping. And in that process, saved everyone in the house from burning down.
Yeah.
And so anybody who's relating with yourself as being HSP, try and think. And I would just, Nitesh, before coming to any question or comment, let everyone just reflect on if anything like this has happened, if you've done something like this, go in your past. It's very likely that something is there where you have contributed in your own way in bringing the group benefit due to your high sensing. As I said, I am not, so I don't have an example, but I would request, maybe, I don't know if Garima is there, Garima can share her example.
This is one question that I didn't have an answer to when I read the book. I couldn't recall something like that. But today, as I was reflecting, I also was tuning into again some of the non-physical aspects of things that I know at Swasth and at the institute also there have been times when our survival seemed to be at threat. So an example being when COVID struck, right? Everything had to be pivoted overnight. But I think that ability to make that shift had actually somewhere resulted in us piloting online programs before itself. And so what could have shut down our operations became a very seamless transition because we were like prepared with all systems 3 months before COVID had struck. And that just came out of an instinct. And yeah.
Yeah.
But physical examples I haven't been able to think of.
Okay.
Sandeep, I don't know whether this is a good example of the implications, but one of the things that I observe about myself is when I'm doing a session, I'm able to observe the people in the room and I can sense the heaviness or, something that is going on in the participants.
Yes.
So I'm able to call it out. And
Yeah.
that's a good data point for the participants to reflect and get back to. So is that reading the room better?
Yes.
I don't know, but this
Yes. It's looking at those subtle signs, right, which others won't. It's just that a little bit of, like you said, heaviness, right? It's just how the person is standing, where they're weight, to be able to sense that and say, this seems like that, right? And then they are able to also connect with it, which they might not be themselves connected with themselves. They don't know what is happening as well. Definitely. That's an example. I asked somebody else and she told me that what has happened a few times was, for example, she went and met somebody and they were sweating in a particular way. And she was able to immediately say, measure the blood pressure, see, and immediately sent to a hospital. And when they reached the hospital, it was a minor heart attack. And if that had been delayed by an hour, that would have been a very different consequence for the person. Right? It's those kinds of things. But it requires the person to start trusting, to start really believing this about themselves and accepting this that there is this higher ability to sense. So this is where it is not the normal. And to be okay to not to be the normal, right? We are so used to being the normal, to fit in. Right? There is a very strong inherent desire almost to fit in. And this is about accepting that, okay, I won't fit in.
Sandeep, some of this could be training too, right? Like what you're giving example, like in some professions, people are trained to detect
Correct?
some of these signals.
Yes. But in this case, the person, this wasn't training. This wasn't a doctor who is doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it can be training. There's no doubt it can be training also.
Okay.
And that's why that questionnaire actually goes a little bit more in detail, but these 4 were very short questions, which sort of, really, that's at the back of the book saying, okay, that's her pitch saying, should you read the book? If you are. So the book is written for HSPs largely. The way she's written, she starts with this also because it's a book written for HSPs. And the reason is this, like somebody else was asking what to do. I think, yeah, Shivani, if that's how you sense yourself, that there is a lot of work, not a lot, but there is some work that has to be done on this side, onto how to reframe your past. How to reframe the experiences that are there around exclusion sometimes, that are there around being called or being labeled in certain ways. And to accept that as just reality, as that's it. That was just misunderstanding in some ways. It was just lack of knowledge, awareness that something like this there. Because as a child, you don't, or nobody understand this, or for that matter, when we were children, the world didn't understand this. This is much more recent. Is to start reframing experiences from your childhood also. Sometimes very traumatic experiences from the childhood, that these were around this, that these were people just not understanding the overwhelm that this can cause.
Sandeep, like if you get overwhelmed, let's say in like our routine corporate and capitalistic settings, if you are getting overwhelmed, then it's not perceived in a good way. Like especially let's say if you're like getting a bit breathless or getting a bit red, it is not taken kindly.
Right.
And if an HSP wants to succeed, then they have to, I guess, not be as transparent and maybe like keep it in private only, these kind of symptoms arising. So how do you manage success as an HSP? Of course, in healthcare, you might be able to detect and save lives. But in a corporate setting, maybe you can capitalize a bit on the mood of the team, motivating them.
Yes.
But especially in like a very high stress jobs, all jobs are becoming high stress, at least in the corporate setup. How do you manage success as an HSP when you are feeling all of these things? And you know, you might end up getting headaches or get a bit stressed out, and then
Yes.
sometime it's like okay, you take some rest, but in certain situations you're not able to get a nap in between the meetings.
Right? No, it's not about naps as much. So I think that's where the book will help. So if people are identifying for yourself or anywhere, there are very specific tools, techniques around healing yourself, around healing the past, around how to manage, how to work in the present, how to manage the overwhelm that comes. That's there, I think, and that's where this will that this can help. I think Elaine's entire work is around that. Unfortunately, as I said, it is not my own experience. I can support with my uh, understanding, working as a coach, as a therapist in one-on-ones, way more than from my own experience in this. But yeah, there are people, I think, I definitely talk to Garima. I think she's She's a lot more experienced in this in her own way and figured out ways of managing this for herself. And one has to find their own ways finally in their own context. But a book is a good starting point. I have read, I would say, most of the book. Beyond the point, I couldn't. There was more out of curiosity, but it stopped being very engaging for me. But I thought it was a good enough. I think it's very relevant topic for people who are feeling this way too. One, I think just understand it's okay. It's in the physiology. I think that's very important to know. There's nothing. Yeah, it's there, and it can be seen both ways. It's how you reframe it is an important part of that conversation. Reframe the past, the present, and hence create a future where you are successful.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I think what you're saying around like how we perceive it, because I think what Shivani was also, you were talking about is this thing around how others perceive us can then end up becoming a vicious cycle and then leading to more overwhelm, leading to others judging us more. But I think for me, what has been the most important thing is what Sandeep has been talking about, like how do I perceive it for myself and how can I reframe that to me? So today, where I am, as opposed to seeing many of these things, many of these needs of mine as abnormal, like I'm able to take more ownership and to state them with much more confidence as well. And that shifts how others perceive that need also. So I find that our own attitude towards it is the most important.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Nitesh, your hand is up.
So I wanted to talk about like, some of these HSPs might have a lot of, detecting threats or, understanding overall this observation and across various multimodal dimensions could be there.
Yes.
But the point is, in order to move forward, there has to be some action orientation, right? Also, so if they are not also equipped, so now you have information, right? What action do you take on it? And a lot of times it might happen is that they might not take actions because of various reasons, because of any fear, because of retaliation, because of whatever, and that leads to even further overwhelmed because now the whole it's like it is getting stored, but there is no outlet, right? So that is what also I feel is that the action. So having a lot of data, finite data is good, but unless a lot of times it requires some action or ignoring that.
Yes.
So that consciously, if it is not happening, that can actually make things worse. And that is what I have observed with myself is that when I have taken actions versus I have not taken action, this high resolution image is actually a burden.
Yes. Yes. Totally.
So
Totally.
anything on that front on how to like go about like, yeah.
I think it starts with acceptance that this is how it is. It is to manage the input. These are things that what I have understood, read from the book, and just saying it from that, just manage the input. So sometimes being very conscious about the information you are getting in. So for example, I think she talks about like configuring your environment to minimize that input. Right? So even for example, the backdrop of your phone, of your laptop, the noise, the clutter, so reducing that, simplicity. Because all that is input that's coming in. So if you're looking at your computer and your desktop is all filled with files, for example, just I'm giving, right? That is all input that is constantly coming in to your system. Same with your phone, same with your room. So decluttering, simplification, these are just some very simple things because this reduces. The other is being upfront. I think like Garima was also saying, owning up to your need to reduce input. So if somebody or some situation, some external thing is going quote unquote too fast for you, or is it too much information in too short a time, right? So requesting, setting that boundary, saying this is my need to reduce that pace. And then you can say it only when you accept that there is nothing wrong with it. It is just how it is. If you give me at the right pace, I'll be able to process it. Everyone has a limit, right? Everyone has a limit. Today now in YouTube, in WhatsApp, we get these audio notes and we have this 1.5x, 2x. I have seen so many people actually listen to it at 1.5, 2x. I can't. I'm like, why should I? 1x is good now, but we want to know time come hai, so we'll do it in 2x. Now, what are you doing in that process? You are actually increasing your load. So you can control the rate at which the external input is coming. So start getting agency around it, saying, I can control the external also. It's not like I can't do anything about it. I can control a little bit. So start managing that environment. Two, obviously, acceptance from yourself about the situation, healing that trauma. That's there, a lot of it that's associated with it. And that's where the book is a very helpful tool. I found it like at least there were a lot of practical exercises which had very limited meaning for me because I couldn't connect with them. But I found that at least the activities, exercises were useful. Some of them I have spoken to others who say or who know themselves as HSPs, they have found it useful. So I can vouch for that. I don't know if Garima has tried any again from the book or she said Elaine's work, which has helped. And Garima, any other tips you may want to share for Nitesh as well on how to manage this?
Yeah, for me, it's been, I think, a lot of personal experimentation more than the book. So, interestingly, I actually still haven't read the book. I've read 10% of it. And that goes again to my HSP nature that I found that also an overload for me. So, but I got the gist of what she was saying, which is the gift of the HSP, right? Like I understood what she's saying and I could create my own ways to do that. But I agree about, I think, the control of the external environment is completely in our hands. And I mean, just one other thought that was just coming to me right now was while we are talking of people and their inherent nature as sensitive or whatever not, the world today is so stimulating that even someone who is not a classic HSP is likely to be struggling with many of these things.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just wanted to bring that point in as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That is so
That-
true. Yeah. One more example, so I'm sharing it from my another person I spoke to. So what that person has found useful is making sure there is me time. So like this question of that time on my own is as important as food and water. So really treat it that way, to accept that it's not about being alone. Sometimes that is another social. अरे तुम अकेले कैसे बैठ रहे हो? Don't you find it odd you're sitting alone? What are you lonely in life? Don't you have a companion? तो ये सब judgments थोड़ी देर drop कर दो, बोलो like she says, it is like food and water. So finding your source for yourself to like rejuvenate and be okay with that. Like, I don't know how, I know I'm saying, but I know Garima does take out that time, right? So I think that's been very helpful for her with nature and otherwise as well.
So I really want to share on this too. My younger one, she's 26 and she is somebody whom I may kind of say is very intuitive and very sensitive to many things. And yes, she does believe in minimalism. She does believe in decluttering. She goes on solo trips. Even now, she's planning a solo trip, and she's always been different. There's always been comparison between my elder one and my younger one because the elder one is far more social. She loves being around people, whereas my younger one is always wanting to, having her, like very Sandeep very rightly said, her me time. She will want to spend time in nature. She will get overwhelmed with too many people and too many people around home or even family members. If there are too many, she's very very clear that I'm comfortable only with a few and I would rather spend time with those people. And it's always questioned and judged upon as to what is wrong with her. And I would say that's how she is. Just accept her the way, she will take her time. If she's going to spend with few people only, just take her the way she is. So these are things that I have experienced as a mother. I have seen those judgments coming across for her. And I think she's been able to draw boundaries very clearly. She enrolls, so she's been able to enroll few of her very good friends. She is able to enroll me into the process and say, this is how I am, and this is what I feel. And I think that's really helped her and us, at least me, to understand her better and accept her and give her that space and understanding. So, yeah. And I'm more curious now to read about this book and see what more comes across over here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that as well, because for me also, it's with this awareness with people around, it's sort of improved my acceptance of who they are, that they need, that it's not about me, right? So sometimes, yeah, I think that does help a lot. So yeah. And in fact, she says she has written a separate book about the highly sensitive child and working or being a parent or a caretaker of a highly sensitive child. That's a separate book altogether. I think younger, because that's the time when this becomes very important in how this sometimes sensitivity is perceived, how socially, like you said. And I think she's been lucky to have you, that you've given her that space, freedom to discover herself and create those boundaries.
I was about to ask the exact same question, Sandeep. Is there a way to find an eye? You're right. I just saw the book. It's called The Highly Sensitive Child. You're right. It's
Yeah.
correct.
Both
It is good. I think it's a lot of things that it's tough to see, right? Because kids are, a lot of kids are it's just overwhelming, right? The world is in general overwhelming. But if you are able to identify this sooner than later and to help your child navigate through this or give them the space that they need,
Yes.
it might just be more helpful for them as they grow up, especially in their teenage years and adolescence years.
Yes.
Thank you, Sita, for.
And even in this book, as I was reading, there's some very good examples on, like she was babysitting some twins, non-identical twins. So the genetics was different, and she saw how as babies or even toddlers, they were different. And she saw them grow through, like how their behavior was different, just on how they would respond to the same situations, like people walking out of the room versus not, leaving them alone and all of that. So yeah, those examples are there in the book, so it's quite rich. And this is, I think, right now it seems like her life's work and passion. So from PhD to continues to build this whole work stream itself. So definitely worth looking at. Any other questions, comments? Others who've been relatively quieter till now? Is this either resonating for you, for somebody around you?
I just opened that site, highly sensitive person, read all the attributes, and I just realized that all of them apply to myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the detailed questionnaire. Huh?
Yeah, so there are 5 or 6 points, right? Are you overwhelmed by lights and sounds and all those things?
Yes.
Right? Most of them, like out of 7.6 of them apply to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when I think there's a 20-point questionnaire also, so I'll see if that long one. This is the long one. I did find it.
So hsperson.com site.
hsperson.com, highly sensitive test. Yeah. So that's
not the test, the 5 points on the
you're just seeing the 5 points. So there is a full test also. So I'm sharing that link in the chat. Sorry. So that's a more detailed 20 questionnaire, and yeah. Once you go there, you will find a lot of information. So good. So there is some good curiosity, interest. Others, yes, Yamini.
Yeah. So until now, I think my understanding of, or what I heard in society as a sensitive person, was somebody who gets impacted very easily by, you know, somebody saying something. I mean, most other people would not mind it, but the sensitive person feels it much more deeply and will get impacted by it. Similar to, I think, what Neha was saying and Garima was saying, right? Like by watching movies, you start crying, or even किसी ने कुछ बोल दिया तो बुरा मान लिया बहुत जल्दी. So that is now different. You will call that as something different. That's not a highly sensitive person.
You could,
And somebody who has more empathy as well, right? Like, you know, if you see a bird hurt, you would feel much more, versus some people don't even care. Like,
yeah, and my understanding is that could be due to both either or reasons, right? So it could be because you are sensing through your nervous system more accurately, more deeply, and that's what's affecting you more. Or you're sensing similarly, but there is a past history which gives this experience more weightage or triggers a more set response in you, right? So what you're talking of is the whole chain from sensing an input to the action. And that has two components to it. First is just the sense. And the second is the automatic action to it.
But are you, for your definition of, or the definition we are talking in today's session is more just on the sensing part, but
yes,
if we don't know about the sensing, I don't know how to, like, I mean, we could go through the questionnaire, and I guess that could be one way of figuring it out.
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason that's important is because what at least her take and my understanding is, you can do something about the weights, right? You can do something. If the sensing is what it is there, you can try and work on the weights. That's the healing process, etc. And you do that, right? So that might reduce the quote unquote sensitivity to the topic. But the hardware, in some way, the sensor that you have, right? It's like, this is the hardware, this is the software. Software you can update. The hardware is there, and there at some point, if you understand that's the hardware, you just accept it and say, okay, how do I manage with this hardware? And that hardware also has its upside as well. Possible upside as well.
Okay. I don't
Yes.
know. There was one question that I'm having is like, okay, one is I'm understanding the highly sensitive person from all the, you know, perception point of view that you've noted, Sandeep. But sometimes what happens, the sensitivity is like, you know, becomes an overused thing. Like,
Yes.
for instance, I know of a person who's very good at kind of seeing risks in everything. And she's a person who manages finance. So very deliberative, you know, that's the strength that she has. She's able to see risks. But what happens is, because of that particular sensing, can I call it sensing in the first place? And suppose I call it sensing, then what she does is, she uses that sensing for every minor thing which she's not supposed to be looking at. So that becomes an overused thing for her. And that becomes a difficulty for everyone around her. So
overusing any power, superpower or strength always has problems.
Yeah.
That's true for everybody and for everything.
It's for everything, I guess.
Okay. Any relation between sensitivity and lifespan? Dogs, birds are to noise and they have less lifespan than compared to human. I haven't found any study or any linkage between this. I think the question of lifespan may have other factors also, including the breath rate, for example. Some people say that other animals have a different breath rate than us. So that factor could also be there. But what sensing does is, definitely there is a clear energy consumption that is linked with sensing. Energy consumption is linked, but I don't know how that affects lifespan or not. Because energy consumption, as in usage internally, but you eat also. So you get input of energy is also there. But yeah, I don't think that's been even discussed till now. In this topic, in this way at least.
May I say something here?
Go on.
So I'm not sure about the dogs, birds having less lifespan because of being sensitive to noise. But one of the studies that I've read is about how animals are more perceptive about natural calamities. For instance, when tsunami came in or when there was an earthquake in Gujarat, that times the animals were able to sense it. I think that's what I read. So.
Yes. Okay.
Sudeep, I wanted to connect back to what Yamini just touched upon and the test that you sent across. And this is actually, and I don't want to drag the discussion to a different direction, but this is it's very enlightening for me. So I used to think, and I still think, and I don't think, but I know that I am a very sensitive person emotionally. So when I was referring to being very sensitive in work environments, or you just like cry when you see a movie. But this test talks about certain other behaviors, which I never connected to being a sensitive person, but they are actually here. So for example, do you get rattled when you have to do too many things at one point in time? Or if I'm actually writing an email, which is like an irrelevant email, and somebody walks into my room and asks me some question, it's just very annoying for me because I'm like focused for that 3 seconds. I want to finish that. So it's like how everybody else's mood affects my mood. Like if I just take away from this questionnaire of 21, anything that it's talked about: sound, scent, music, noise, because I just don't know whether I am. I've not, or maybe I've not known myself enough from a physical sensation standpoint, whether those stands or don't, or maybe they're not as strong as they are. But everything else that is being spoken here, which is not really, I never thought those are sensitives. For example, I try hard to avoid making any mistakes or forgetting things. Like I really try hard. Like I just don't want to forget anything. So let me write here and let me write here and let me write another to-dos. And I'm thinking if all of those are connected, because they all just have flashed in here in this questionnaire as is. And one of the things that is here is changes in my life shakes me up. It does. Like, and I don't think or maybe I'm just reading it too much, but if there are, like, you have a plan and you want to do this, and somebody says, no, we are not doing it, we're doing something else, it just completely shakes me up. So I'm just like trying to see this, but I'm just also connecting back to what Garima said, that it's also the mirroring neurons, or like, how do you even sense what's happening around you? Even emotionally is also probably in a similar definition as well, right? Like things changing, or there are multiple things happening. Each of those are also senses for a person who could be an HSP. I mean, I'm not trying to classify myself an HSP, but I'm trying to connect these dots to say, maybe that's a part that's more pronounced than the other.
Yeah. And like the other is like people were saying, right? Even if, as I said, you may have a great sensor, but if you aren't trained.
Correct.
Right. So a lot of that music sound is a lot training also. You may have a sensor, but if you're not trained, you're not trained. You can't do anything with it, but you may still have it. So I think that's why this more detailed version is, of course, there. My suggestion is take it for everyone. Say it's 20. I think they give a score, how many are yes, and there is a cutoff. So that will give you some sense. And the other is the book already Jaya has shared. So I'll put it also on the group, and the questionnaire also link I'll put on the WhatsApp group. So try it, see if read a few pages, see if it makes sense, because she makes a more clearer and compelling case. I think what my attempt is also to share this, that there is this is what she emphasizes on. There is sensitivity the way we know. A lot of it is in the action side, where there is an automatic trigger of certain responses. That's sensitivity. A low trigger gives a high response. But there is some sensitivity which is just there, which is in the hardware. So there is a hardware and a software aspect to it. And I did spend a lot more time on the hardware. I think some of the softer things are there in our hardware, which Western science doesn't recognize. So in that list of inputs, So there is emotions of others, there is mood of others. We do sense that. I think there is a sense that we have, and even if it's not electromagnetic, we have the ability, and I think again, ability to distinguish from facial expressions. And that gets very acute, that small changes in facial expressions of people, HSPs are able to detect better. But that's visual, that's just change. This slight tweak, this slight difference between the nature of the smile, the disconnect between the smile and when the smile is coming and when the word is, the tone of the voice, and so all that mismatch, etc., all that I have found HSPs are able to catch that much more quicker, easily. And it may seem like a sixth sense, extrasensory perception, but it's just this processing sometimes. And there's a whole series around it also. There's a TV series on micro expressions. So now they have this whole thing around microfacial expressions, and they detect it through AI, through facial rec and all of that. But we may have that ability, and people do have that. From that, they are able to detect that. The change in the voice tone. So even hearing somebody, you may be able to say, okay, what's their mood like? And some people will not even know, okay, what is it? They need a more explicit change, and some people will detect it. Has that happened? I'm seeing nods. So, right, this mood we are able to sense through, even on a phone call, sometimes we are able to sense the mood, right, of this person. And people we are more familiar with, we are able to do that more. But some people are able to do with more unknown people also, just through their voice. But just sometimes the eyes, the way the eyes are, the way the face is, and one starts through training develops that, but some are able to do it more, let's say, naturally, quote unquote, more instinctively.
Can kids also take this test?
Yeah, of course. Of course, it's for anybody. You can take it on behalf of kids also.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but then, yeah, I don't know
You
if
know
I
your
can
child.
honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a test on highly sensitive child as well.
there is.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'll
Oh,
just
there
send
must
it.
be. Yeah, yeah. This is, I haven't fully
Oh, that's
explored.
great.
There is a lot.
I'll just
HSP
send it.
parents, every lens she's taken now. So I think it's, yeah. Oh,
Just-
good.
Thank
I
you.
think it's just pretty similar set of questions, but it doesn't elaborate scenarios much louder.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. One more thing, I see a lot of overlap between like HSP and I guess what you're talking about, and for example, introverts, people who are more anxious, and so on, right? Like I see a lot of overlap. Like some of the things that are being talked about are also, I think Netflix also had that in one of the documentaries. There's like 5 or 6 different personality types, and there is a personality that detects, danger easily. So I see a lot of overlap between personality type.
Possible,
and this.
yeah, possible. So this is in some ways I would say what I have come across, a very almost a parallel tangential quote unquote way of thinking. So it's not fitting into any other personality fits or personality types, etc. It's sort of just talking to a particular kind of audience, which in her experience is estimates is around 15 to 20% of population, which is just largely due to biological variance in this, right? So just the hardware is different. So she, in the book starting, she does differentiate between the different kinds of sensitivity in that sense.
Okay.
So she does do that, yeah.
Thank you.
And so, yeah.
I wanted to say a few things
Yes, Garima,
on
please.
the question. One is that the longer 23, 20 question, whatever odd questionnaire, maybe it's not like you have to have all 23 on 23 to be highly sensitive. Though, I mean, I have 22 out of 23, but what she says is like if you're 12 or something more than that, then that makes you whatever this category of highly sensitive. So we may not find resonance with each and everything out there. I think what perhaps Neha was talking of earlier. Awareness के साथ साथ definitely sometimes things that we may not have really been aware of, वो भी पता चल जाती. So the score may change over time as we understand and become aware of ourselves better. But I feel like a risk with like this and any other questionnaire in general is the cutoff is 14. Okay, on the
14.
book it says 12.
Either
So
14 likha on the question. If you answered more than 14 as true, you are probably highly.
okay, so in the book that I have with me, it says 12. So I don't know if there is a shift in the editions and all. But anyway, so I feel like a risk with some of these होता है ना, जैसे हम 12 और 14 पे हम लोग भी micro difference पे बात करने लगे. We have this tendency in the world to pronounce things as binary, yes or no, highly sensitive, yes or no, autistic, yes or no. And my understanding of life is that it's a spectrum. So to also not get caught up with this, you know, कि तुम हो या नहीं हो, but to see this as a spectrum, to see where is this showing up for us and how can we, if some of these things are showing up, how can we manage them in a better way for ourselves? But to not get into this, I think 0-1 state is what I wanted to say. And the other is, I think on some of the questions around, just I love the questions around ye, that we're thinking of, acha introversion se kya link hai, extra sensory se kya link hai, all of that. We may not and will not find answers from this framework, I think, because it is still evolving. It's a body of work that is evolving. It's a different cut at things. It's a different like parallel framework, like you were saying. So isko isi ke liye dekhen, but like to also not get see this as the final authority. Like you said, ki Western science ki bhi understanding is still evolving. They see things a lot more physiologically than psychologically, though Elaine does bring up a lot of the psychological components, but like there are broader views that we can bring in and make our own meaning and expand and build on this framework as well, instead of taking this as a gospel.
Yes. Still evolving. Yeah, there's some interesting blog posts also. I'm saying, are highly sensitive people more prone to illness? I think somebody had asked that question. So they are also figuring out and sharing their views as they are learning. I think this seems to be a good repository. Okay. Thank you. I think we are also at end of time. So I'll close. If there are other questions, I am around, so feel free. But I think before, as I'm closing, also with the prayer, I thought it's good to just see this. This is the question, at least for this is, what is it? Like it's a boon or a superpower. I think just seeing that, because it can go either way. I think it's how we manage it, how we probably understand it, accept it, that makes a lot of difference. And I think this is a source for people, both for yourself and people around you. Okay. So we'll close the session. Sit comfortably. Gently close your eyes. Your feet on the ground, back supported. May all be sukhi, khush, joyful. May all be swasth, sehatmand, healthy. May all be in shanti, sukoon, peace. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for the very informative session, Sandeep.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. That was really amazing. Just one or two things that I was going through when you were doing this session. First of all, I was relating sensitivity to emotional sensitivity only, because that is what comes out like very common in the workplace, saying that this guy is highly sensitive, we can't do anything with him and stuff like that. but understanding it from the neuroscience perspective, and that gives me also an opportunity to go through the book also to see what else is there, because it's always good for me. I know when I like to experiment with things, kind of work with it. So that was one thing. So thank you for doing this session, Sandeep. Though you were very forthright in saying like you are not that person, but you're just dealing with that. I think that confidence with which you do it tells me that you're not a high HSP anyways, in any which ways. That's one thing. And the other thing for me, actually, as a takeoff for this session is just to check the sensitivity on all the sense aspects, not just on one aspect. And from the pain, the chemical aspects, that's, I think that was beautiful and an amazing takeaway for me.
Thank you.
So yeah, so there's only one formula that I think as of now, after attending the session, the acceptance by oneself, saying that I am this person at this moment in time. Maybe in future I may not be, but this point I am this person. So once we start accepting that, then there is no fear in the validation, no fear in the acceptance from others. That's been my journey as well. So thank you.
Yeah, it's about acceptance, a big part, and reframing.
Yeah, it's about reframing. Thank you, Sandeep. Bye. Bye, Kalpesh.
Sandeep, I just took the test you sent.
Huh?
So I just took the test, and my score was like 21 something. I said, I never thought I am the high sensitive person.
Interesting. Good. Yeah. Then my suggestion is, see, the book is very well written. Go through it. I think it will, right. A lot of it is, how this was seen earlier and what our view about ourselves is based on what we have been told. We all try to fit in the norm, and very few things we want to excel or be different in. So, yeah. But this is what nature has given us. This is hardware. Almost क्या करूं? Yeah, my suggestion is definitely the book is worth it. बहुत आसानी से इस पे है. PDF तो share करा है, but you will get it very nicely on Amazon.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sandeep, nice session. Yeah, so it gives me a lot of food for thought. And I could resonate with so much. I took the test and I answered yes to all the questions. And all. And it doesn't really, I mean, it gives me, something, it brings me to the space where I'm more able to accept my sensitivity, because there are so many times, there still are those instances when I'm like, it's so difficult to accept your high sensitivity because it just comes in the way of, functional living at times.
Yes.
But then it also like, what I have realized through my practice of whatever I have been practicing and to the one-on-one sessions with you is that we can definitely rewire our entire nervous system to become more resilient, right? Because, and I could resonate with so many points throughout whatever you mentioned throughout the session. One is I got COVID long before everyone knew about it. So I got it in January 2020.
Oh.
The world came to know in March 2020.
Yes.
Right. And I almost died, but I survived.
And
it was the deadliest strain of COVID. And then there was this, I'm not sure if you know, but there was this earthquake in New Jersey right before the solar eclipse on April 5th. And I could, I was there at home. My husband was there. He didn't feel a thing. I could feel it. And I came running down and like, not just the shaking feeling, like I heard the sounds that I heard were like that of a storm. And nobody heard a thing. Okay. So that was that.
Share करना था ना group में.
Nahi, I was so overwhelmed,
Yeah, that's the thing.
And being a mother to two sons with autism and just witnessing like how sensitive they are, and also like what I notice in myself and also in my sons is we have a very high resistance to pain as well.
Hmm.
So we are very sensitive, but at the same time, we are very resilient as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Very high threshold for pain.
Hmm.
And also
Karan, you're so aware of it that you have also built a bigger, like your bar is higher in some ways, right? When
very, very high, very high.
because
And
you're
also like the dreams that I have and
Hmm.
I are so vivid, and it's like a physical jolt. I have trouble falling asleep. I have trouble staying asleep. And I sometimes, if I have very vivid dreams, I wake up very tired.
Hmm.
And I remember my dreams vividly. It's very tiring.
हाँ, बिल्कुल मुझे कुछ याद नहीं रहता इस मेरा स्कोर शायद बहुत पुश करके 1 आया था यार ये तो चल कुछ तो गरिमा का भी ऐसा ही है कुछ 21 22 23 में ही है उसका बिल्कुल yeah no so good yeah so my suggestion is definitely read the book, get the book, read it. I think it is a healing journey. It's like a workbook. Huh? It's not just to be read. The concept itna hi hai, but I think she's taking the reader, the person. It's written for HSP, so it's for them to find healing. So workshop. She also says, वो गरिमा जो बोल रही है, उसने करा नहीं, but she does say, take your time. मतलब एक exercise करो.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, as you correctly pointed out, like everyone needs to find their own way. And I think intuitively we all do it from the very childhood. We might not be aware of what we are doing, why we are doing, but intuitively, because that is how we survive, right? Otherwise, how else are we going to survive?
हाँ, but इधर वही है कि survive से thrive कैसे करना है. So for that थोड़ा सा जो healing का part है, it does help. There are some activities, something. So how have you saved a life? Can you think of instances? Like this earthquake is one great example. Like
Oh my God! Immediately I emailed my son's teachers. So one of them said, we didn't feel a thing until somebody came and told us.
Yeah.
Neither me nor the children. The other son's teacher said that maybe because they are on the ground floor, the one teacher who said that we didn't feel a thing. The other teacher my elder one's teacher, she said that yes, we could feel it. And the children were also, watching the rattling tables and chairs. But this earthquake was a big example. He didn't feel a thing. I'm like, how can I not feel anything? And there was this loud sound that I could hear. He didn't feel a thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And the aftershocks were, milder. I could sense those as well.
Yeah. Yes, so बिल्कुल. Yeah, there was another example मैं भूल ही गया उसने मुझे बताया boat का so NCC वाले Navy में all are so sailors but one person detected that threat of boat capsizing sooner of some wave coming and saved everyone in that process, the whole boat and the person.
And COVID, for example, also I feel, okay, nobody else in my circle, Sandeep, nobody else got COVID except me. And I don't go anywhere. I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Yes. So yeah, how to thrive with this, how to heal. That's what I think the book and Elaine offers a lot. And yeah, we can regulate, we can rewire our nervous system.
I think I'm learning to, have a more poker face when I'm amidst situation which I don't like. And I hope to master the poker face one day because it starts showing on my face.
Ah. What starts showing on your face?
Whatever I'm going through, my emotions, I feel just like starts showing on my face. So I'm hoping to master the poker face so that people can't see.
Yeah.
Because I don't like being in places which are too loud or too, flashy. But others might not even feel it. And I need time by myself a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, then that's okay. I think that's one of the big things. be okay with that, to allow yourself that. Yeah.
But surprisingly, like I have been to my own therapist and to my son's developmental pediatricians as well. I'm not sure if you're aware, but like in the past many years or so, I would say a past decade or so, many people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s are also getting diagnosed with autism. But surprisingly, none of them would diagnose me with autism. They would say that, no, you don't check, tick off those, checklist. So that is not there, but definitely this HSP thing is definitely there.
They say it or you know it's there?
They say it. Because I asked.
Achha,
right?
they are aware of this now, HSP.
I'm not sure if they are aware of HSP. I just asked them if I am on the spectrum.
Achha.
And they said that no.
No, I'm saying, did they say that you are HSP or you are saying you are HSP?
I am saying that I am HSP because I just took the test and I answered yes to all the questions.
Correct.
No, I asked them about whether I am on the spectrum or not, and they said no.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Good. Hello. देखो क्या करना है.
Yeah.
Just knowing part of it is.
Yeah. Interesting session. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No, pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Yeah.